Hi, my name is Sam Wilkin. I'm an independent writer and editor based in Brussels, and I previously led teams of journalists covering EU regulation here. A couple of weeks ago, I wrote a piece on my site on the Brussels Effect, link below, which I'm going to summarise for you here. Now, the idea of the Brussels Effect is that whichever big economy regulates first and best gets to set the standards around the world. And for a long time, that has been Europe, the EU. So, for example, many cars around the world use safety standards and efficiency standards that were set by the EU. Consumer electronics all take the USB-C cable now because despite Apple's objection to that piece of regulation, it decided that it was worth just complying with it rather than creating two different versions of all its latest electronics and continuing to offer its own charger. So that's an example of the Brussels effect actually changing the behaviour of one of the world's biggest companies. But the Brussels effect is declining now. This is the argument I make, and I think that's for three reasons. Firstly, the regulation just isn't always that good. If we look at the GDPR, that came out a few years ago, it was the last piece of regulation that really spawned a lot of copycat regulation all around the world. But actually in the implementation, it's been a bit disappointing. Firstly, it wasn't really responding to the demands of consumers. This idea of privacy is all well and good, but actually most people seem to prefer convenience. How many people do you know who actually turn off the location tracking on their phone, for example? Really easy thing you can do to sort out your online privacy. Very few people actually do it. And so the regulation wasn't really responding to consumer demands, and most consumers' experience of it it's just been a bit annoying. You've got all these cookie banners popping up on websites, things don't always work perfectly. If you click a link in WhatsApp to Google Maps, it doesn't open Google Maps anymore. A lot of EU regulation is causing friction for consumers, and companies have noticed that. Secondly, with that, the burden of compliance with that regulation for SMEs in particular has been very heavy. Whole consultancies have been set up just to comply with the GDPR. It's becoming quite a big cost of doing business. And a lot of businesses are starting to maybe think, maybe this is too much. And that's dangerous because the second reason is that the EU is a less important part of the global economy now and will continue to become less important. We're not growing as fast as the US. Europe's economy used to be as big as America's. Now America's is about 50% bigger. Added to that, you've got China, India, various other countries in Southeast Asia and Africa growing really quickly. So Europe's share of the global market, the global consumer market, is going to just get smaller and smaller and smaller with every year. And so at some point, a company might make the calculation, well, it's just not worth coming to Europe. It's a smaller share of the market and the burden is higher and higher. And so maybe we just don't do that. And we've started to see, even Apple and Meta have now delayed, they've not cancelled, but they've indefinitely delayed the launch of certain of their AI products into the European market because of issues around compliance with the Digital Markets Act. Now, a third reason the Brussels effect is going to diminish is that regulators should be very worried about that. And the reason for that is Europe is not creating its own innovative companies. We missed out on the tech boom that created the likes of Google and Meta. It looks like we're going to miss out on AI as well. We're way behind the US and China. And so if we don't get those products from America, if we don't get Meta's AI or Apple's AI, we're just not going to get AI at all, because no one in Europe is producing it at anything like the sophistication that it's being produced in the US. And who are consumers going to blame for that? It's not going to be those companies. It's going to be the EU, and the regulators know it. And so for that reason, I think we will probably see a bit less ambition on the front of regulation coming out of Brussels for exactly that reason. And if policymakers in Brussels want to lead the way again, regulating the world, they're going to have to go back to basics, and that means delivering growth and innovation within Europe's economy itself.